but I got anxiety. I got pride, right? I got ego. I have self, a lot of that. And so I care a whole lot what people think about me. I care what you think about what I look like, how I talk, what my story's like, if I have a good enough message. I care about all that. I don't want to, but I do very much. So me doing these things when I'm asked to speak is me setting all of that aside, right? I'm super uncomfortable up here right now in front of y'all. Um, but this is how I stay closer to my higher power, is by saying yes and sitting in front of people, because people did it for me, right? Women sat in front of me and they told me their stories and they told me how they did it. And that's how I got here. Some of those women are no longer with us. And so part of me being honored when I'm asked to do something is that I get to carry them with me. Every time I tell my story, I tell theirs too. And that's huge for me. That's very important for me. Um, but I am honored to be here. It's weird being asked to speak. Nobody wanted to talk to me before. Like, my drug dealers were telling me I should go to rehab. Nobody wanted to talk to me. My parents wouldn't talk to me, and my dad was like, "If you step foot on this property, I'm calling the cops." And now people are like, "You should come and tell your story." I'm like, "That's wild." So my sobriety date is December 27th, 2017. So I just celebrated 7 years a couple months ago. Um, that Thank you. that is that is a miracle. When I walked in the doors of AA and then lots of rehabs, I didn't believe in a higher power. And the longer I stay sober, the more I believe in a higher power, because I could not keep myself sober for 7 hours, let alone 7 years. That's wild to me. I thought I'd be dead by now. Um, I have a home group. It is CA Common Solutions West Ashley. If you are ever in Charleston on a Monday or a Friday night at 7:30, come join us. We have a lot of fun. We'll come join y'all. There's a lot of good recovery there, and a lot of newcomers, which is fantastic. I have a service commitment. I hold a different service commitment at that home group I have for the last 5 years. Held a different one every year. This year I'm the GSR. Um, and I sponsor women. I have a sponsor. She knows she's my sponsor. I just talked to her right before I walked in the door. She said a prayer for me. I always ask my higher power to take over when I'm speaking so that I can just get out of the equation. Today she asked her higher power, so if this sucks, we'll blame it on Sarah's God. It's their fault. I don't know. I try to stay in the middle of this thing. It took me 12 years. I'm an AA kid, so literally grew up in the rooms. My mom got sober when I was 2 years old. She's still sober to this day. And I really did not want the 12 steps to be the answer to what was wrong with me. I tried everything else that I could think of and that everyone else could think of, and I just kept hitting a wall. I I guess I'll talk about the first step. Also, I talk about some unmanageability. So step one, right? We admitted we're powerless over alcohol and that our lives have become unmanageable. So the unmanageability was basically my whole life. I don't know if I was born this way or not, but I'm pretty sure I was. I am. I have three brothers, and our entire lives were about me. Everything was about me, and if it wasn't about me, everybody else was gonna have a bad time until it was about me. I did not care what my brothers wanted to do, what my parents wanted to do. I didn't care what anyone wanted to do. I only cared about what I wanted to do. And I got away with that a lot. Like I said, my mom got sober when I was little. I don't remember not having a sober mother, but my mother remembers not being a sober mother. So she carried a lot of guilt, and I knew that. So I used that to my advantage, right? Because if I can figure out how to manipulate you, I am going to. That's what I do. So I figured out at a young age that I could manipulate her. My father uh, worked a lot, and he he just threw money at me. That was how he thought that he was supposed to take care of me. They did the best they could, I guess. They were separated when I was little, so like my mom was in California and my dad was in Florida, and they would ship me back and forth a lot. And I started from a very young age to learned to become a chameleon. I had two separate homes, very different home lives. I had two separate groups of friends, two schools, two everything. So I would just morph into whatever I thought you wanted me to be so that I could get whatever it was that I wanted to get, which typically was attention back then. Um, I am addicted to anything that takes me outside of me. I heard a speaker one time, she said, a drink is a drug, as a man is a cookie. And I was like, this lady gets it. She gets it. When I was young, it was the first thing that took me out of me was reading. I loved to escape into stories, right? Because I, on my own, am unmanageable. I'm going to read y'all the bedevilments real quick. Um, so we're having trouble with personal relationships, always, my entire life. I don't know how to interact with any of you, ever. We couldn't control our emotional natures. Nope. From a very young age, I just stuffed everything. I didn't know how to talk about what was going on inside of me, so I would just like push it all down until I would explode. The first time I moved out of my mother's house, like on my own, I left all of my posters up on the walls, and she took them down to move my little brother into that room and called me and was like, why are there holes everywhere? I would just explode because I would push everything down. No control over emotional natures. We were a prey to misery and depression. Yeah, for as long as I can remember. I was just, it was always like there was something missing, right? Like everybody else had this playbook to life except me. It was like there was just this hole inside of me for as long as I can remember. We couldn't make a living. I mean, I didn't have to back then, but I I figured out lots of ways over the years to make money, but I wasn't making a living, that's for sure. All my money always went to drugs. We had a feeling of uselessness. Yeah. Yeah. When I got sober this time, I was like, what am I going to do? Like, all I've done is drugs for as long as I can remember. I know how to bartend, I know how to sell drugs, and I know how to sell. What am I going to do? Like, how am I going to benefit society? I was terrified when I got sober about what happens next. We were full of fear, always. I would not have told you that when I got sober. And I really didn't even recognize that until I started to get into the steps and it was explained to me what the fear was and where my anger was stemming from and all these things. But now I can look back and like my whole life I was scared of everything. I was scared of what people thought, what was going to happen. Just everything terrified me all the time. We were unhappy, yeah, forever. We couldn't seem to be of real help to other people, never. Because it was all about me, right? I don't care if I'm helping y'all. So my whole life was like that. Everything was unmanageable forever. For as long as I can remember, my life is unmanageable. It took me longer to figure out that I was powerless. I started doing experiments because there was a point, right? There was a point in my life where I could drink and drug successfly. And I could put it down. I didn't want to, but I could if my parents were like, you cannot be drunk for this. I'd be like, okay. And I wouldn't, if there was something that like needed to get done, I didn't have to use and drink for a while. But then what happened was anything that got in the way of that, if I can't be drunk or high here, I'm just not going to go. Like that's ridiculous. I'm just not going to go to that. I would just let things go if they got in the way of my drinking and drugging because I need to be outside of me, right? I can't be here without something. And at some point, I don't know when, doesn't matter. At some point I crossed a line though. And every time I put a substance into my body, I could not stop until something stopped me. Usually it was the cops. And I started, so I went through like all the drugs, right? I started drinking when I was 12, and then I just was like, I'll just try all these different things. Every time something stopped working, I would try something else. And I was 21, I think? I don't know. I think I was like 21, because it was around when I had my son. I got into opioids. And it was a problem, right? I was like, this is a problem. I can drink and do cocaine all day long and like have my job and take care of my child and all of these things. But now I'm doing something that's making me sick if I don't have it. And so I was like, this is an issue. I should stop this. So what I would do is I would stop doing that. I would detox myself and then I would just drink and just do cocaine every day. until I would eventually go back to opiates. The first time I did it, like 8 months, I was so proud of myself. And then the next time it was like 6 months. The next time it was like 2 months. And then I never picked up a drink again because my disease figured out what it liked. And I never picked up another drink. And I was baffled because I spent years, right, trying to figure this out. And I was just baffled. I thought that I was just broken. I didn't know what was wrong with me. Like I said, I grew up in AA, but I wasn't listening. I was drunk a lot when my mom would take me to meetings as a teenager. I wasn't listening. I'm sure somebody told me the three-part illness at some point, I'm sure. But I never heard it. And I started going to rehabs and stuff, and I would like half-ass my way through it. But eventually, I wound up at a 12-step place in Charleston. And I got through my detox, and they sat me down, and they pulled the big book out, and they started asking me questions. When you put a substance into your body, can you tell when you're gonna stop? And I was like, no, not for a long time now. You know, there used to be a time where I could have a couple drinks and go home, and now I'm putting something in my body and I'm stopping when I'm in handcuffs. And it had been that way for a long time. So I could relate to that, right? And they were like, when you don't have something in your body, what do you think about? I was like, either how I'm gonna get high or how I'm not gonna get high. That's all I have lived in for 12 years now. That's what I've lived in. And so they started telling me stories of their own, and then they broke down the three-part illness for me. And I was like, whoa, I was blown away. I was like, this is what's wrong with me. And that was such a moment of hope, right? Because if that's what's wrong, then maybe what these women are saying is the solution, if this is what's wrong with me. So I learned about the three-part illness, and I started to be able to see, right? Maybe I am powerless. I went back out, and that was probably the worst relapse I've ever had because I had like all of this new knowledge inside of me about what was wrong with me. And so I'm like getting high and thinking about the three-part illness. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm in the obsession right now on the way to the dope man's house. And then I'm like getting high, and I'm like, well, there goes the allergy. Probably getting arrested again. Like, it was terrible. It was not a good time. And that relapse really solidified it for me. I was like, okay. It didn't mean I was really willing to do anything about it, but I could see that they were right. I was powerless. I did not have any control over this, and I hadn't for a very long time. So when I went back to rehab this last time, and they asked me, do you concede to your innermost self that you're powerless over drugs and alcohol, and that your life is unmanageable by you? I was like, yes. Yes, I can concede that, right? Step 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. So I didn't believe in a higher power. They said there's this guy that ran the treatment center, he still does, and he said, I want you to pray morning and night. And I was like, to what? I don't believe anything. He said, I don't care. Just pray. I didn't tell you to believe in something. I told you to just pray. I was like, okay. I really like trees, so I would go outside. There was this one really cool tree, and I would pray to the tree. And that's how it started. I was like, I don't know if this is going to work, but I'm going to try. He told me to. And at this point, like, I had gone to rehab to stay out of prison. I had gone to rehab to get my kid back. I had gone to rehab to get my parents off my back. I had gone to rehab because my dad bribed me with a car. I had gone to rehab for all of these reasons, right? This time, there was not a reason that was my reason. I had given up. My family kept calling, and this lady from the rehab center kept calling me, and it had been like a year and a half that I had been out. I spent like 9.5 of those months in jail. And they kept calling and begging me to come back to treatment. It was the day before my 32nd birthday, and there was just a moment where I said yes. And I have no idea why I said yes, but I got on the plane. So this time when I went to rehab, I didn't really know why I was there. I was like, I don't want to be sober. I don't think I'm going to be. I'm pretty certain I'm going to die with a needle in my arm, and I'm okay with that at this point. I would just like it to be quick. But I was there, right? I was like, okay, I'm here, so I'm just going to do another 90 days, and then I'm going to go back to my life because that's what I do. And but I just did what they told me, right? Came to believe is moved in the direction of believing. I did not understand my journey to step 2 until I was probably almost 3 years sober. And a man in a meeting said, the way I got to step 2 was I took steps 3 through 12. And I was like, oh, that's what happened. That's my story. That is how it happened for me. They just said, are you willing to believe that maybe there's something bigger than you that can restore you to sanity? And I was like, I mean, sure. You got me in a room full of people doing this 1, 2, 3. Everybody else said yes that was doing it. So I was like, yeah, I guess so. And restoring me to sanity, right? In the book, when it talks about insanity, that's the obsession, right? I need something to take that away from me because I have lived in that for as long as I can remember. Those obsessive thoughts. This time it's going to be different. This time I'm going to manage it different. This time I'm going to control it better. This time I'm not going to jail. And eventually my obsession shifted into fuck it. Ooh, am I allowed to cuss?
Yes.
Okay. Eventually the lie it told me wasn't that it's going to be different, right? Because I have too much evidence at this point. Like we can't kid ourselves anymore. There's too much evidence. I get high, I know I'm going to jail. Like we're going to jail. We don't know when, but it's happening. So my obsession shifted and it told me that I don't care. Fuck it. I don't care. Nobody else cares. My family's been gone for a very long time at this point. I don't care anymore. There's nothing else to live for. Who cares what happens to me? That was the new lie that my obsession told me when it couldn't trick me into believing that I was going to be able to manage things. And I desperately didn't want to live in that mindset anymore. And if I was going to be alive, I wanted it to be different. So, like, yeah, y'all are telling me you have a God that can restore me to sanity. Cool, I'll go pray to this tree. But it took me a long time to connect, to feel a connection to something else. So if you're struggling with that, like, just keep taking the steps, man. It'll get you there. That's the whole design. That's the point of the 12 steps, is to get you there. So don't give up. So I said yes. I was like, yes, I'm willing to believe in something. Step 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. I don't believe in God at this point. So I'm like, how am I supposed to do this? I don't even know what that means. Made a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God. What does that even mean? And they said that I could break it down real simple. I'm making a decision to go through the rest of the steps. That's it. That's your decision. And I was like, I can get on board with that. Later, they taught me that my will and my life were my actions, my thoughts, and what motivates those things. I could get behind that. But it really was as simple as I'm making a decision to take steps 4 through 12. I could do that. I'm in rehab for 90 days. I might as well. What else am I going to do, right? Get yelled at for not doing it. So I could do that. I was like, all right, we can do this. So we move on to step 4. And I, at this point, have done 4 steps before. I did a couple of half-assed ones. My first one is my favorite. I wrote what I thought my sponsor at the time wanted me to write. I was like, how much is like enough to where I'm supposed to be in this club, but not too much where they're going to kick me out of this club, right? So I just tailored it to my sponsor, who had a very different story than I had, and so it was interesting. It didn't work. I didn't stay sober. And then I had done a really thorough one. The first time that I went to the treatment center in Charleston where I learned about the 3-part illness and stuff, I did do a thorough 4-step that time. I was trying to stay out of prison that time that I went to rehab. And I was like, if I don't do this, they might kick me out. And then I'm going to prison for like 20 years. So let's do this. And I wrote everything down that first time, except one thing. I held on to that one. That one was mine. And this time, when I did it, I kind of went at the steps the first time that I did it this time with a fuck it mentality. Fuck it, I'm just going to do it. What's the worst that's going to happen? These people are right, and it's going to work. If they're wrong, I'm just going to go back to the same shit I've been doing all these years, which I'm used to that, so that's okay. The absolute worst thing that's going to happen is I'm going to wind up back where I was. And the best thing that's going to happen is these people are right and I'm going to have a better life. So I put it all out there. made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. That's like terrifying. But I had like reached this space, right? I already told y'all I care a whole lot what y'all think about me. I care so much. And my higher power gave me this woman to sponsor me that had my story, because I was not in a space where I could relate to thoughts and feelings, right? I needed physicality. I needed your story to match my story in order for me to open my mouth and be honest with you. Because as far as I was concerned, my story was rough. And I had not encountered a lot of people yet in recovery that had similar stories to mine. The AA that I was involved in back home, I'm from a small town in South Florida, a whole lot of true blue alcoholics. And I'm a heroin addict and a crackhead, and so there wasn't a lot that I could pull from their stories that I could hear at that time. So my higher power gave me this woman who also went to rehab to stay out of prison, and her story was my story, and there was just something about her, man, that I was just able to let it all out, and it scared me, but she kept telling me, 'cause I hated myself for so long, right? I know all the things I've done. Y'all might not know, but I do. I was there. And I hated myself. And I didn't know how I was ever going to forgive myself or how anyone else was ever going to forgive me. And that was part of what kept me sick for so long, right? Because I don't need an excuse to get high or drink, but I'll take one. You give me an excuse, I'm happy with that. And I was handed some excuses when I was a kid. Some shit happened, and I was handed these things where I was like, if this happened to you, you would drink and use like I did too. These were my excuses I got to hold on to, right? And then I became this like just tornado of wreckage. And so then I was my own excuse. I was like, well, if you were a shitty mom who abandoned her child, you would also get high like I get high. If you missed your uncle dying, you would also get high like I get high. Like then I just gave myself excuses. So I didn't know how I was going to get from this person to anything resembling a good human. But she kept telling me that I was not bad, that I was sick. And I had never heard that before. I am sure someone said it, but I did not hear it until that woman told me. She said, we are not bad, we are sick. You are trying to get well. And then every time I would get too wrapped up in feeling sorry for myself, she would bring me back to the 3-part illness. And she would walk me through it again and say, do you believe that this is what's wrong with you? And I'd say, yes, I do. That is what's wrong with me. I wholeheartedly believe. And she would say, okay, then you're sick. You're not bad, you're sick, right? If that's not what's wrong, then okay, maybe you're just an asshole. But if that's what's wrong with you, then you're sick. And so I just kept going through that. I would keep turning back to that and back to that. And this woman told me her story, right? And like, she did some stuff. And she was wonderful. She was amazing and so kind. And she cussed like a sailor, and she was so loud. She was covered in tattoos. She was one of the kindest people I've ever met. And she just lived to serve the newcomer. Every time a new girl came in, she was washing their sheets, making their beds, brushing their hair, helping them shower through their detoxes. Like, she was just incredible. And so I was like, okay, like if she's telling me the truth about her story, then maybe if I do what she tells me to do, I can get to where she's at too. They told me when I did my steps 1, 2, and 3, and then they were like, okay, you got to find a sponsor now. And the guy said, don't pick someone who has what you want, because what you want is heroin. So pick someone that has what they want. Pick someone that seems happy in their own skin, right? He's like, are you comfortable in your skin? I was like, absolutely not. Let's take this stuff off. He said, find someone that is. And that was her. And so I was able to just let it all out. Now I'll just tell anyone anything. I don't have a filter anymore. But I did back then, and I gave it to her, and I was like, okay, we're going to look at this stuff, right? And I was mad at everybody. I was mad at everyone I had ever met. They were like, write a list of resentments, and I was like, fuck yes. And all these people, fuck all these people. All these people did me wrong. It's everybody else's fault I'm like this. And they're like, she was like, okay, now we're going to look at your part. And I was like, oh, I don't want to do that. And it was so freeing to to look at not the I know I'm an asshole, right? I know what I did. So like writing my part in things was pretty simple. The thing that was most freeing for me was the things that I did not play a part in before they happened. So those excuses that were handed to me as a child that I've carried my entire life, and held up to examine that this is why I am the way that I am. When she taught me how to look at not the part in I played in what happened because I was a kid, the part that I played in what happened after. How did I carry that? How did I allow that to affect the way that I treated men and women? How did I carry that? I used it as an excuse for every bad thing I ever did. I used it as an excuse to treat men and women like shit in relationships. That was my excuse for everything. And so when she showed me how to turn that around, it was huge for me. It was like I could finally set these things down, which meant maybe, just maybe, there was hope that this was going to work because I had never sat those things down before. Every time I tried to get sober, I was holding on to those things are mine. You can't tell me I played a part in those things. And she was able to show me that. It was huge for me. The fear part is still to this day my favorite part of a 4-step, the fear inventory. Because like I said, I would not tell you I was scared of anything when I got sober. And I didn't really understand that I was. I was scared of not having dope. I was scared of prison. But not a lot I didn't feel like scared me. And so walking through a fear inventory and seeing how my fears drive me and have my entire life, and then looking at, how do I perpetuate these things? Where do my fears start? This is what happened. This is why I'm scared. How do I perpetuate these fears? What are the actions that I'm taking in my life that are perpetuating these fears? What are the things that I tell myself that perpetuate these fears? Because I lie to myself all the time and I believe it. And then what would God or my higher power have me be and do? So simple, so simple. I use it all the time. I love a fear inventory. So simple. It gives me very specific things that I can do, which I'm big on that. Tell me what to do, I'll do it. I can follow some directions. I'm not great at just like navigating the world by myself. I need some directions to follow. And so a fear inventory gives me that. It gives me specific instructions, things I can do to alleviate my fears, which is fantastic. Sex inventory, that was fun. That was a nightmare. I was like, this is terrible. I hate this. But it also showed me how I interacted with people, right? I did not realize the way that I interacted with people was like just manipulation. That's all it was. And like, these are my survival skills, right? Like, these are the things I picked up. I realized at a really young age that if you thought I was cute, I could get what I wanted from you, and that was perpetuated because people just kept falling into that trap. So it was like, okay, I can do this, this I'll navigate the world. And so that was like, when I got sober, I was like, this is all I have. This is all I'm working with. Like, I don't know how to be a decent person. I know how to flirt with you. I can do that. Like that's all I was working with. And so to look at like how I interacted with not just people that I was in a relationship with, but like everyone that I interacted with was really cool. It was very eye-opening, and it gave me some hope. So we got through that, right? We get through this 4-step, and then she's like, okay, now we're going to do a 5th step. So admitted to God, to ourselves, to another human being, the exact nature of our wrongs. I still don't believe in God at this point. I'm still praying to a tree in the front yard, but I still don't believe in God. So I'm like, whatever, I'm going to tell your God and you all of these things that I've done. And I've listened to a lot of people's experiences, right? And some people have said that they had these like white light experiences, and at the end of their 5th step, they felt so light and blah, blah, blah. It was amazing. And that was not my experience. So if that was not your experience, or it's not your experience, it's okay. You can still stay sober. This can still work. That wasn't my experience. I was tired. It took a really long time, and I was exhausted afterwards. I just it was like, okay, I did that, the thing that I didn't realize then, but I was able to realize later, looking back on it, that was like the first time ever in my whole life that I had been completely honest with another person. So that was like a milestone, right? Like that was huge for me. I didn't realize it at the time. At the time, it was just like, well, we're done with that. I'm tired, and now you probably think I'm an asshole. So I'm gonna go to bed. And but it was later I was able to see that like that was such a moment for me because that had never happened before. I did not know when I first got sober. I lied so much that I didn't even know like I didn't mean to. I mean sometimes I did, but sometimes I didn't even mean to. It was just stories I had told for so long that I just told them. Or just lies would come out. So I told someone that like this is an issue for me. And the man uh sorry, he's not here anymore. The man who started that treatment center, he said, integrity is doing the right thing when no one is watching. And he said, no one is going to know if you lie or if you're telling the truth, right? Because we weren't there. We don't know. And thank you. He said, you're the only one that's going to know. So this is up to you. How bad do you want this thing? And I was like, not very badly, but whatever. We're still here. And he said, every time you lie, I want you to say, that was a lie. Or, I apologize. That was a lie. I don't know why I said that. I was like, okay. That was the most humbling few months because let me tell you, I lied so much. And for some reason, I followed those directions. I don't know why. I mean, now I do. It was my higher power. But for some, I was like, all right, I'm just going to listen to what he said because I've never listened, right? I've tried to get sober so many times and people are like, you should do this and this and this. And I was like, nah. And it never worked. So this time I was like, I'm just going to do whatever they tell me to do. So he tells me to do this. So I'm like constantly having conversations with people and having to stop, apologize. I'm sorry, that was a lie. I don't know why I said that. 5 minutes later, I'm sorry, that was a lie. I don't know why I said that. It was embarrassing. The women thought it was hilarious. They made fun of me about it all the time. But what happened, some cool things happened. I got more honest. I started to pause before I spoke because I didn't want to have to keep saying those things because it was embarrassing. So I would like pause before I spoke and I would think about what was going to come out of my mouth, which made me nicer because I was not nice when I got sober. I was not a nice person. So a lot of really cool things happened. I got more honest, but I also got softer. I got nicer. I learned how to communicate better with people. And so I just kept doing that, which was wild. But so I do this fifth step, right? And so now I'm like, I've gotten completely honest with this human. She knows things about me that nobody else knows. There's a couple of things that woman is the only one that knows. Well, that's not true. There's sponsees that had the same thing that I've shared those things with. So then I do my hour and stuff, and we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. I still don't believe in God, so we're at a little bit of an impasse here. And she's like, just keep going, right? Just keep going. And I'm like, but it says we're entirely ready. Like, how am I supposed to keep going? She said, look at all these things, right? So I've got this list. She made me a list of defects. I got this long list of all these defects. She says, look at all these things. Do you want these things? Are these things that you would like to keep? And I was like, I mean, some of them are useful, but I mean, I guess I don't want these things. Like, I don't know. She's like, these are the things that are causing you harm. These are the things that are killing you. Do you want to keep these things? I'm like, I mean, no, I don't want to. I want to be a better person, right? I don't want to keep these things. And she says, okay, then that's good. That's good enough for now. I'm like, okay. So humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. I still don't believe in God. But there's a 7-step prayer in the book, right? So I start saying the 7-step prayer every day. They're like, just say the 7-step prayer every day. And I'm like, okay. I'm saying the 7-step prayer to this tree. And I just kept doing it. Now, that 3rd and that 7-step prayer, man, whew, they'll get you places. Those are some good prayers. We just did a meeting last night, a third step prayer. God, those are good prayers. But I'm just following direction, right? They told me that if I followed directions, I'd stay sober. So I'm like, all right, I still don't really care to be sober. I'm still just here and doing things. And I'm like, I've reached this place of such surrender, right? I'm just so broken that I have just surrendered. I'm like, I don't want to be sober. I don't want to be alive, but I'm here. So I'm just going to do whatever the hell you people tell me to do. That was a gift that I did not realize was until years later. So I just keep saying this prayer, even though I don't know who I'm talking to. I don't know if I believe this is going to happen, but I just keep saying it. And at this point, my life still does not look great, right? Like nobody will talk to me still. I don't have any money. My parents aren't sending me any money. The staff members are getting me cigarettes. Like everything I have, I've either stolen or people gave to me. No one in my family will speak with me. I have warrants out in Florida that I didn't even know about. Like, life still sucks. But I'm with these people, and these people are cool, and, like, I'm making friends, and I'm not dope sick, and I'm not in the streets. When I went to rehab this last time, I flew from Northern California. I was living in a garage in the middle of winter in Northern California. Life was not good. So I'm like, I have a warm bed, life is good. Life is okay. So I just keep saying this prayer. And I make a list, right? Step 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Remember I told you that I was mad at everyone and I had all these resentments? God damn it. And then she was like, you gotta make this list of people that you're gonna make amends to. And I was like, oh, now I have to talk to these people and like say sorry? And she's like, no. People in your life have heard sorry enough. We're not saying sorry over here. And I was like, okay. So I have this list because I made it when I wrote my 4-step. I have all these people on there that I've harmed. And I've got them sectioned out, right? I've got some that I'm willing, right? Like my family, I'm willing to make amends to. Mostly things that I feel like are going to benefit me, I'm willing. I'm like, I'll make amends to these people because that's going to benefit me. And then I have a list of like maybes, like maybe I'll do that. And then I have ones that absolutely not. I'm not doing that. And one of them was my ex. I was like, I'm not making amends to him. I hate that motherfucker. I'm not making amends to him. And so they told me to pray for him. So I have this list, right, of ones that I'm not willing to make. And they're like, we're going to need you to pray for the willingness. And I'm like, I still don't believe in God. They're like, just pray. Pray for the willingness to do the right thing, to make amends. These people deserve amends. You harmed them. And I'm like, okay. So I said, I'm not praying for him. I'm like, just pray for him. And I'm being a jerk for like a couple of weeks. I'm walking around. I'm starting to be a jerk. Again, I'm like starting to kind of fall back, right? There's this one I'm like, I'm not praying for him. And finally, this staff member sits me down and she's like, listen, I'm going to need you to start praying for that man because you're being a fucking asshole to everybody. And it's affecting all of the women. And like, just pray. And I'm like, okay. So I told her I would pray for him to get hit by a bus. And I started praying for that man. Started praying for him to get all the things that I wanted in life, right? Started praying for his blessings and for his healing. I prayed for that man every day for like 2 months before my heart started to soften. And I started to make, because at first I was like, all right, God, I don't believe in, please give him a girlfriend. And, like I was like real sarcastic about it. But I did it, right? So I just kept doing it and like it got softer. And over time, I started to mean it. And I prayed for that man every day for like almost 3 years. And we're friends now. And it's crazy what this program does. I blamed, that was the person who gave me my first oxy. And he also did a bunch of other stuff. But that was the thing, right? Like I blamed it on him because I didn't do pills before that. And so like, this is your fault that I became a heroin addict. So I blamed a lot of stuff on that man. And I didn't think I would ever forgive him. And that's the power of this program. That's the power of my higher power, is that my heart has softened to literally everyone at this point. There's one that we've been hanging on to some hate for a while, but it just recently started to soften. But so I'm praying about these people that I don't want to make amends to. And then we get to step 9, right? Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. I'm like, I'm pretty sure if I talk to any of these people, it's going to injure them. It's going to harm them further. So we should just not talk to them. My sponsor did not agree with that. So I have all these people, right? And she just starts telling me to write them out. And so I just start writing these amends. And I tried to start with my family, right, because that's easy. And both my parents wouldn't hear my amends because they had already heard amends, because this is not the first time that I've gone through the steps. This is the first time I've gone through the steps honestly and wholly, but it's not the first time we've been here. So they were like, no, thank you. They're still not even like really speaking to me. And I'm like, will you hear an amends? No, the answer was no. But some people did, some people have received my amends very well. Some people have given me back amends when I have given them one. Some people have said, I don't need to hear your amends, but I forgive you and it's okay. I just want you to have a good life and be happy. Like, I'm happy for you. Some people have told me to go fuck myself. And don't ever contact them again. That's cool. That's my amends. Don't ever contact them again. That's simple. So I start working on this list right now. Remember, I am an AA kid. I have been in and out of the rooms for so long. And in almost every meeting I've ever been to, they read the promises. They are not the promises. They are the 9th step promises that are read in almost every meeting. There's promises for every step, but that's another topic. So in the 9th step promises, right, it says before we are halfway through. This is not the first time I've done the steps. So I'm like, I would hear that all the time, like before we are halfway through, these things are going to happen. And I'd be like, on a 4-step, do a 5th step, 6th step, and none of that shit's happening. None of those promises are coming true. I'm like, y'all are lying. I am halfway through these steps, and this is not working. And I went to the gentleman that was the director at the time there, and I was like, listen, I am on step 9. Like, I've already made like 2 events, and none of these things are coming true for me. Why are these promises not coming true for me? And he sat me down and he broke it down for me, and he was like, these are the 9th step promises before you're halfway through with your amends. And I was like, oh, okay. So I actually have to like make these amends to get these promises. So, but that was cool, right? I had never heard that before. So that was really cool, because he was like, these things will happen, but you have to continue on this journey. The promise is that halfway through your amends process, that these things will start to come true for you. So I was like, okay. I mean, there's some pretty cool shit in the 9th step promises. I was like, all right. I mean, that was motivation to keep doing these things. So I kept reaching out and I kept making these amends, right? There's some of them, I had a very long list. There are some of them that I still haven't made, that I have not had the opportunity to. I've tried to find the people. I don't know how. Some people died before I was able to. I have made those amends in other ways. With most of them, what I do is I find a space that's meaningful to me, and I just talk to them. I just make it to them because I believe they hear me. Others that, I can't make amends to for whatever reasons, I do a living amends to others, right? Like, I didn't go to every store that I stole from and like, hey, I stole I don't know what from you for 12 years. I don't know. I didn't do that. So like, I don't steal from stores anymore, right? I stole from a lot of drug dealers. I did not go to their houses and make amends to them because I probably would have gotten high or shot. Oh, it's been 45 minutes. So that was
Keep on going.
okay. So that, I don't steal from people anymore. There's stuff like that, amends that I can't make. Like, amends is not saying sorry. I did that my whole life, and I never meant it. And the times that I did mean it, like, sometimes I would say sorry to, especially like to my parents, and my son. I would say sorry, and I meant it. Like, I meant it when I told them I'm not going to do this anymore. I remember vividly on my knees in front of my 4-year-old at my dad's house, promising him that I was not going to leave again. I'm not going to leave again. And, 4 months later, I'm gone again. And kid doesn't see me for another year. And then promising him again, I'm not going to leave again. I'm not going anywhere. And that time I left and my kid didn't see me for 8 years. So, like, I meant those things, but I didn't have the power, right? Because when we talked about in the first step, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol. I am powerless over me. And y'all, I'm powerless over literally everything, right? Now, like, in this sober space that I stand in, I've been given some power, right? I can make choices. That was one of the biggest things that this program gave me, was the power to choose. Right now, the obsession's not here, right? And sometimes, especially when I go home, sometimes I'll be driving and my brain will go, you could turn right to the dope man's house. And then I'm like, well, that's a terrible idea. That's a bad idea. And I'll, like, give it to my higher power, and then I'll call my sponsor or another woman in my fellowship and be like, hey, this thought just happened. It took me a long time to realize that, like, I'm a heroin addict and I'm probably going to think about heroin sometimes. But the desire has not come in a very long time. And that, I believe, is because of the things that I do on a daily basis to keep me in contact with my higher power that keeps those thoughts at bay. But I've been given a choice today, right? I woke up this morning. I have things that I do every day to stay in this sober space that I have. I can choose not to, right? I can wake up and be like, fuck all that shit. I'm not doing any of that. I'm not helping anybody. I'm not answering my phone. I'm not going to a meeting. I'm not talking about my feelings. I'm not doing any of these things. And maybe not today. Maybe not tomorrow. Maybe not next week. Maybe not next month. I don't know. But at some point, if I choose not to do these things long enough, that obsession's coming back. And then the power of choice gets taken from me all over again. And we're winding up back in handcuffs probably. Mm-hmm. So this is not an I'm sorry for my behaviors, right? Because I cannot control that. And amends is changing my behaviors. And part of that amends to everyone that I have ever harmed is continuing to do this on a daily basis. That's part of why when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is talk to my higher power, because I owe those people that. I owe those people that I've already harmed, and I owe future people that I could harm that, the grace that is given to me by following these directions every day. So I make amends wherever possible. And I keep doing it because I still hurt people. I still harm people. And because that was a thing too, right? Like, I thought that, well, here we go. Step 10, continue to take personal inventory. When we were wrong, promptly admitted it. I was taught how to do a 10-step. I was taken through it in the book. When things crop up, selfishness, dishonesty, self-seeking, fear, I get pissed off at you. Things crop up, I do something about it, right? It's outlined in the book. I ask my higher power to remove it. I talk to someone else about it. I tell them what's going on with me, either what I did or what's going through my head. Did I harm anybody? Sometimes I did. Sometimes I didn't. Sometimes I managed to keep it in here. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes it comes out and I harm people. And then I do something about it. And then I help somebody. If I harm someone, I make amends. And then I help somebody. I turn my thoughts to someone else. And I thought a lot of times when I got sober, every time until this time, I thought that, like, I got sober and so I was supposed to be perfect, right? We're not shooting dope and smoking crack no more. Now we are perfect. We don't make mistakes. We don't hurt people. And that is just not true. And this time, someone said to me, you got to figure out how to love yourself or you're not going to stay sober. I was like almost 3 years sober when somebody said that to me. And she was like, you're not going to stay sober this time either unless you figure out how to forgive yourself for being human. Because I would make mistakes, right? And I would just beat myself up about it. But the one good thing that I did this time, even though I still beat myself up about it, I would talk about it. Every other time I ran. I get sober and like, I still don't want to be me, right? And I don't want to be inside of this. So my big thing is relationships. I get sober and I'm like, the nearest cute man or woman, I'm like, come here, make me feel better. I need some attention. I gotta feel better. I need some validation because I hate me, right? So I need somebody else to validate that, like, I'm worthy. I'm a good person. I'm worthy of life. And so I get sober and I harm people is what happens. But this time I got sober. I met a girl and she was cute and it was brought to my attention that I was using her to make myself feel better. And for the first time, I didn't run. First time ever, I didn't run away. My sponsor said, you have to stop talking to that girl. I was in treatment, so she was like, y'all gotta stop talking. And I didn't want to, but I knew that she was right. She said, you are harming her, and you're harming yourself. You're taking this away from the both of you right now. And I was like, okay. And I stopped talking to her, and it caused some tension because she was great. So we were a house divided after that, right? Because she's mad. She wasn't yet there to make that choice that I made, and so she's mad, and I'm an asshole. And so we are a house divided at this point, and some of those women were very mad at me, and it made life uncomfortable for a little bit. And that girl, she would leave and get high, and then she would come back. And that happened like 6 times over like a 4-month span of time. And every time that she would come back, I would want to run away. And every time that she would get high and leave, I would want to run away. But I just kept talking about it. And so I continued to stay. And it was like, these things are going to happen. I'm not perfect. I'm a person, and I'm going to make mistakes. And I have harmed people in sobriety on purpose. I have done things that, like, I knew I shouldn't be doing. I did it anyways. And, like, not in my first year of sobriety, like last year. I was like, I shouldn't do this. And I did it anyways. And then I called my sponsor and said, I just did this. And she was like, okay, we're going to need to talk about that. You're going to need to not do that again. Because I'm a person. And so I'm going to make mistakes. But it's about what I do next. That's what it's about. Should I be out here making decisions that I know are going to be harmful? No, I shouldn't. And it's a lot better than it used to be. But like, it's what do I do next? When something comes up, because it's always me trying to fix something that's going on in here. Every time that I make a decision that is a selfish and self-centered one that hurts someone else, it's because something is going on in here that I'm trying to fill with this instead of this. Every time. So if I continue, though, it's this opportunity for growth, right? I fucked up real bad last year. I made a decision that was very harmful, and it hurt some people that I care deeply about. And I went to my sponsor and I told her what happened, and I did the work. And I dug in and I did the work and I got honest about it. And I told the people that needed to be told, and I made amends. And it sucked. It sucked so bad. But now, that was like 8 months ago or something. I am, for one, proud of myself that I didn't run, because that's what I did forever. And also, there was a new connection that came in with my higher power. Because every time that I humble myself and admit my humanness to another person, I connect more with my higher power. And I connect more with y'all, right? Because I'm not the only person that made that mistake. Somebody's going to come to me at some point and be like, this is what I did. I'm going to be like, hey, I did that too at 6 years sober. So let's talk about it. I can show you how I got to the other side of it. It's just about not running for me is the biggest thing. And if I don't, I get to continue to grow. So I continue to take those inventories. Do I always promptly admit it? No, I don't always promptly admit it. I try. Sometimes I don't do a great job of it. Sometimes I hold on to it for a little bit, and then I tell my sponsor, and she's like, "When did this happen?" I'm like 3 weeks ago. She's like, "Okay, cool." We talk like 5 times a week, but I try, right? I'm doing my best over here. um, so 11. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. When I hit step 11, I still didn't believe in God. So, but I'm still praying to this tree. And I've had some moments at this tree, and I can see, right? I can see something working in my life. I still wanted to get high, almost every day, and I would tell someone. It wasn't the obsession. It wasn't the fuck it or this time it's going to be different or any of that. It was just like, I would really like to be high right now and not doing whatever this is that we're doing. This sucks, and I would rather be high. So I would go and tell someone, because that was another theme of my sobriety stints. I would get sober. I would still be thinking about getting high, and I wouldn't tell anyone because I thought I was sober and I wasn't supposed to have those thoughts. No one told me it was okay. I mean, maybe they did. I didn't hear them. So this time around, I had asked the man that ran that thing, I said, what are some things you think that I should do differently this time? And he said, when you think about getting high, I want you to tell somebody. You need to stop holding that in. You're a heroin addict, and you're a crackhead, and you're going to think about it. So I want you to tell somebody. And I was like, okay. So every time I wanted to get high, I'd go and I'd tell this man that worked there, say, I want to get high. And he'd go, okay, go wash the dishes. And I'd go wash the dishes. And 2 hours later, I'd go back, I want to get high. And he'd go, okay, go read to that newcomer. I'd go read to that newcomer. And I just kept doing that over and over and over again. And so it was like, I could see that something was changing. Something was happening, right? I still didn't know what it was. I still couldn't really say the word God without wanting to throw up. I had no idea what I was praying to when I was talking to this tree. I was just like doing what they told me to do. But I did really jive with meditation. I was like, I can get on board with this. Because I like vibes, very vibey. I like vibes. And so I was like, and I'm very high strung. So I was like, this is calming. I can sit and like listen to these things. So I just continued to do what they told me to do, right? And there's steps, or there's directions for the 11th step in the big book. So I just did these things. And today, that is, prayer and meditation is like so huge, right? Because that's where I ask and that's where I listen. And it's so simple. It's as simple as praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Is that simple? I fuck that up all the time. But it's that simple. And when I can remember that, it does great. When I pray in the morning, because I still have like I don't know, my God's my God. So in the morning though, sometimes it's very simple, and I just say like, thank you for keeping me sober yesterday. Please keep me sober today. Show me where I can be helpful to others, and please keep me from being harmful. Sometimes it's that easy. And I wake up and I don't even open my eyes or get out of bed. And I say that first, because if I don't, I'm bound to fuck something up on my way to the kitchen. So it's like, as soon as I'm conscious, I'm like, please help me not fuck this up today. But it's this growing, changing thing, right? It has changed. I didn't know what a higher power was, or what it was supposed to be, or what I wanted mine to be. And so what I started doing in early sobriety was I would ask other people what their higher power was. What is your higher power? What do you believe in? What do you pray to? I sponsored this little tiny black lady. She was like 67 years old. She was one of my first sponsees, and I still don't believe in God. And she, there was a church, this Baptist church across the street from us, and she wanted to go to church every Sunday. And she walked with a cane, and so I would go to church every Sunday with her. She was like, "You gotta go to church with me." I was like, "Okay." So I would go to church with her, and I took what felt right for me, and I left the rest. And then I went to somebody else's church, and I heard some other things that I liked. And then I went to a Buddhist place, and then I just like kept trying all of these different things. And over time, I have found a space that, like, what I did earlier on that worked for me. And the longer I've stayed sober, man, sometimes I need a bigger God. There's been some times where some things have happened in these last 7 years, and I struggled. And my sponsor would say, "You need a bigger God. Why don't you go find it?" And I'd search again until I found it. And so that's just a constant, like, growing thing and changing and evolving. It's not one set thing for me. It's very evolving, which I think is helpful for me. Um, Step 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. That's the deal right there. That's it, right? Like, I came in, I didn't believe in God. I got to step 12. I still didn't believe in God, but there was a spiritual awakening. I was not the same person. And I found my higher power in my first sponsee. That was how I found my higher power. We tried to carry this message, right? So, like, I go through these steps. I take all these steps to the best of my ability. I had to do another 4-step, like, a couple months later because my memory was shot and they started to come back. So I did it to the best of my ability. And I got to this space where I had changed. I still had a lot of those defects. I still do. I still wasn't great with coping with the world and stuff, but, like, there was a foundation under me. Things were changing, and I carried this message that was outlined to me in this book, to a 17-year-old girl. And at this point, I still wasn't sure what I wanted. I still wasn't sure if I wanted to be sober. I still didn't believe in God. I had a better understanding of who I was. I was figuring out how to better communicate with the world around me. But this 17-year-old girl came in, and she had lived the same life that I had by the time I got sober. I got sober at 32. She was 17. And I didn't know if I wanted to be sober, but I wanted that girl to get sober. So I poured everything I had into this girl. And she did not stay sober, but I did. And by the time I got her through the steps, she stayed sober for like 8 months, I think, that time. She did get sober again later, but she stayed sober for like 8 months that time. By the time I got her through the steps, which I was still at this place, this 90-day place. I stayed there for like almost 2 years, but it was a 90-day place. And it was like in my first, like 5 months or something of sobriety. And that's where I found my higher power, was in her, because I watched her change. I watched the light come on. I watched her change. And it was the first time that I had been fully selfless. Because today, I'll be honest, I sponsor some women because I know it keeps me sober. I didn't know if I wanted to be sober. So I was not sponsoring that girl because it was a benefit to me. I was sponsoring that girl because I wanted her to have a better life. She was the first person I had ever in my entire life poured everything into. And on the other side of it was God. And it was, she changed. That girl saved me. She really did. I talk about her all the time because she saved me. That is the power of carrying this message to other people. That is why, like, I get up and speak when people ask me to, even though I feel like I am going to throw up the whole time. It's because I am not the same girl that walked in here. I am grateful for her because she kept me alive. And all of that list of defects that I was handed in the beginning, I still have that list. Those were her survival skills. That was how that girl learned to survive in a world that she found herself in and that she had placed herself in that was dangerous. And that was how she survived it. And I am able to set those things down, right? I'm safe today. Someone married me. That was wild. He was nuts. I was not a good partner. I cheated on everybody I ever dated. I always had somebody waiting in the wings. I was violent. I was not a good partner. I am mostly a good wife. Sometimes I'm a psychopath, but I have a way to deal with it, right? When I'm an asshole, I like remove myself from him. I'm like, I should probably step away right now. I'm gonna go. And he's like, you do that. And then I like pray and I talk to my sponsor, another woman in my fellowship, and I find that centered space again, right? Like I invite God in, because when I'm yelling at my husband, there is no God there. So I invite God in, and then I can reconvene and have a conversation. My parents, who would call the cops on me if I showed up, I have a key on my key ring to my father's house. I have two little sisters, and if something happens to my father and my stepmother, I get guardianship of them. That's wild. People wouldn't let me watch their pets. That little boy that didn't see his mom for so long, when I got sober this time, my dad told my son's father, she's in rehab again. And they were like, okay, whatever. And they didn't tell my son because he had stopped talking about me years before. He used to ask where I was, and then he stopped. And so they didn't say anything to him because they didn't know what was going to happen. And after I'd been sober for a year, my kid's daddy called my dad and was like, is she still sober? And he was like, yeah, she is. So they told my son, and they said, mom's sober. She's been sober for like a year. She's in South Carolina. Do you want to talk to her? And he said, no. And they said, okay. You don't have to. Why don't you want to talk to her? And he said, because I'm afraid she's going to come back, and she's going to leave again, and she's going to die. Because my little kid knows that his mom was a heroin addict, and he has friends whose parents were heroin addicts who died. And that's a very real possibility, right? So they're like, okay, that's fair. We're scared of that too. And I used to get so mad. I would watch all these people get sober, and their kids would come to visit them like the third week they were in rehab, and I was like, fuck all y'all. It was so frustrating. And this woman used to tell me, they're not all going to get their kids back. And you are the one that can show them that they can stay sober, whether their kids come back or not. And I was like, man, I don't even know if I want to be sober if he doesn't come back. Like, what's the point? Because he was the reason I tried the very first time, right? I fell out after a 3-day bender and didn't pick him up from daycare. He was the reason I walked into rehab the first time. What's the point? So I'm like 2.5 years sober. And that same woman said to me, you have to give your son up or you're not going to stay sober. Because all these kids are coming in on the weekends to visit. And I'm getting more and more pissed off. She's like, you got to give him up. He's always your ace card. Every time you get sober, that kid's your ace card. You have to give him up. You have to make a decision that you want to be sober, whether that kid ever comes back. Because if you don't make that decision, you're not going to make it. And I was like, fair enough. So I started doing a lot of work around that. I started doing a lot of prayer. Because at this point, I'm 2.5 years sober. I have found a higher power. Doing a lot of prayer. Doing a lot of work around this. And a couple months before my 3 years, I had this epiphany, and it hit me that I wanted to be sober no matter what. Whether he came back or not, I wanted to be sober. All I wanted for him was to have a happy and healthy life. That was it. And if I didn't get to be a part of it, that was okay. As long as he had a good life, that was all I cared about, and I wanted to be sober. And the month before my 3 years, my dad called and said, your son wants to talk to you. And that was terrifying. Good Lord, I don't think I've ever been more scared. This kid has not talked to me in 8 years. Like, he's 13 at this point, right? I haven't seen him since he was like this big. And we got on the phone and we both just cried for a while. And I said, you can ask me anything you want to ask. I'll answer any question you have. And he said, I only have one question. Why did you leave me? So I explained the 3-part illness to my son. He's old enough at this point to understand things like that. And I got done, and he sat there silently for a minute, and he said, okay. And then we just started asking each other questions. What's your favorite color? What do you like to do? We just started learning about each other, and I had to I had to prove to his dad that I was going to stick around, right? So I had to like make phone calls and stuff like that, be consistent. They needed some consistency from me, and like 6 months later, his dad finally agreed that I could see him, and I went home. Oh, I lied. I was more scared this time. I went home to my dad's house, and he had my kid there, and I walked into the back screened-in porch, and he's out there at the back of the yard throwing an axe. And I just stood there with my dad, right? And I'm like, Daddy, I'm scared. And he said, why are you scared? I said, what if he hates me? Like, what if I would deserve that, you know? He said, he doesn't hate you. He loves you. You're his mother. And I walked out the door, and he turned around and saw me, and he dropped that axe and a hard hat. I don't know why my kid was back there throwing an axe. Anyways, he dropped those things, and he just ran. And today, I call that kid every Monday at 6 o'clock. Mom calls. He knows that. I have called every Monday at 6 o'clock he's 17 now. So, and he knows that, you know, he lives in Florida with his dad. I go home and visit as often as I can. He comes and spends the holidays and summer break with my husband and I. We take him on vacations. He calls and tells me when things are going on in his life. He called me when he lost his virginity, which was super gross, but it was gross. But it was also like, he tells me everything, which is wild, right? Like, we've created this space where he has a mom who's safe, and he knows that, and like, that's huge. That's the biggest thing I've done in this journey. He's amazing, man. That kid did not have to forgive me, and he did not have to give me the space to be a part of his life, but he chose to. And that is the beauty of this, right? And like, we don't all get our kids back. We don't all get everything back. There's still some people that mean a lot to me that still won't talk to me, you know? There's some bridges that I might not ever be able to rebuild, but I just do the best I can with what I have each day, you know, and I try to show up in the best way that I can each day. And some days I'm not proud of how I show up, but if I continue to do these things, I get another chance the next day to show up as a better version. And that's the point, right? It's to like continue to try to do this, continue to try to be an example to other women, that if I could make it out, then so can you. And this isn't the only pathway in the world, but this is the one that saved my life, and that not only saved it, but like has made it so much better. I used to hear people, I'll say one more thing, I'll shut up, I promise. I used to hear people say, I'm grateful to be an addict and an alcoholic. And I was like, you're an insane person. Like, who would be grateful for that? That's crazy talk. And now I can sit here, and I don't know why they said that, but I know why I can say that. I can say that I'm grateful for this because I am the only one out of all my siblings that I'm the winner. And I have a design for life, right, that my brothers don't have. My older brother lost his daddy a few years ago, and like, I got to go home and be there for him. I got to be present for my family when they were having a really hard time, and like, my brother doesn't believe in a higher power. My brother believes that his daddy is just poof. And those steps in this program gave me a higher power that when I lose people, I know where they went. I know that they're still here. I know that I can talk to them. You know, he doesn't have that. My baby brother has such bad anxiety. Oh, it is like crippling. And it keeps him from so many things if he doesn't have his medication. And I have anxiety and some other things. And I am able to take these things and use them as coping skills when those symptoms show up for me. I'm able to do the hard thing. I'm able to walk through it because I have a design for living that works. And I wouldn't trade that to be a normal person. If I had to go through everything that I went through to get here, I'm okay with that. And my dad said to me one time that if our family had to go through everything that they went through so that he could get this version of me, someone who is able to help other people, he says, I hang drapes. You save lives. He said, if we had to go through this so you could get here and we get this version of you, then that's okay. We're okay with that. And that's what a blessing, man, because I put my family through hell. So what a blessing that they can see the miracle of this too. And that it's a really amazing thing to walk this way of life. Thank you guys for having me here. Thank you for hanging out with me and listening to me. That's it. That's all I got.
Awesome.